Disney fans, lend me your ears. On today's episode, my very first ever movie review, I'm going to be telling you all about what I thought about the movie Captain Marvel. Let's chat. Okay guys, first things first, before I delve into Captain Marvel with you, I gotta give a shout out for Mia. Mia gave me these beautiful rose gold ears when I was starting this channel. I was like, I hope someone sends me rose gold ears because I just think they're so beautiful. Mia's favorite attraction at Walt Disney World is the Rock and Roller Coaster, which is over there at Hollywood Studios. Thanks again, Mia, for lending me your ears. So I think most of you know this already, but what is Captain Marvel? Well, Captain Marvel is the latest film released underneath the MCU, or the Marvel Cinematic Universe. Now, it is put out by Marvel Studios, which is owned by Disney, so thus the reason I'm able to review it on this channel, because technically, it's a Disney movie. Captain Marvel is, I believe, the 21st film released in the MCU. That's right, 21, and all of these movies interweave and interlock to tell one big story. There's different phases, it's a whole thing that I won't get into, but this one happens to be the first female-centric superhero movie that we've seen from the MCU. And guys, it's gonna be real important when you walk into the movie theater on April 26th to see Avengers Endgame that you have already viewed Captain Marvel. It really leads right up to it. Who's excited about Endgame? So back to Captain Marvel. Now this movie takes you on a little bit of a time warp because it's set in the mid-1990s, which I loved. It's basically an origin story film that tells you all about this person's life and where they came from and how she came to get these amazing powers. Seriously guys, she's got some amazing powers. Now to begin with, without giving away any spoilers, I just want you to know my general opinion about the film. And my general opinion is, I loved it guys. It was pure fun, pure entertainment. I would go back and see it again. I highly recommend it, especially like I said, if you plan on seeing Endgame, you really need to see this one first. And I think overall, it wasn't my favorite movie in the MCU, but I would give it a solid 7.5, maybe even like approaching that 8 number if we're talking 1 out of 10. So what are you waiting for, guys? Go get in the car. Go see it. If you don't have a car, call a friend. Have them drive you. Call an Uber. Call a Lyft. Go see it. It's really great. We are not sponsored by Uber or Lyft. All right, guys, now let's get into a little bit of the nitty-gritty about what I felt about this film. Now, going forward, I should state that there will be spoilers from this point on in the video. Spoiler alert! Spoiler alert! Wee-oo, wee-oo, wee-oo! If you haven't seen Captain Marvel yet, pause it, go see it, and come back so that you can kind of know what I'm talking about and so I don't completely ruin the movie for you. Okay, so to break this down, I decided to talk about 5 things I loved about the movie and 4 things that were just kind of questionable for me about the movie. Tried to make it 5, but couldn't think of a 5th thing. So the 4 things that I do have aren't even necessarily negatives as much as just moments for me. If you know me personally, you know I have a lot of moments. All right, so we'll start off with one of the things that I loved. One of the things I loved about this movie was Nick Fury. Guys, we get to see Nick Fury as a really fun, laid-back kind of fella. I mean, this is not the Nick Fury that I know from the other movies in the MCU where he's hardened and tough as nails from all of life's experiences with S.H.I.E.L.D. He is super fun and apparently a cat lover. Who knew? I mean, guys, this actually might be my favorite performance from Samuel L. Jackson in any movie. He was just super fun to watch. I loved seeing him as this carefree kind of funny guy. Another thing that I want to point some light at is that they did a really great job with the special effects in this movie of making Samuel L. Jackson look younger, look like his mid-90s self. They also did a great job of this with Agent Coulson. Guys, who's back? I missed you, Agent Coulson. I'm so glad to see Clark Gregg back in the movies again. Little tidbit if you didn't know, Clark Gregg, the guy who plays Agent Coulson, is actually married to Jennifer Grey of Dirty Dancing and Ferris Bueller's Day Off fame, so the more you know. So at this point in time in the mid-90s, Nick Fury is actually just a S.H.I.E.L.D. agent kind of learning the ropes, and he doesn't even have any semblance of a thought about life outside of his planet Earth. He doesn't even necessarily realize that aliens are a thing. When Captain Marvel comes and is starting to talk to him about, the Kree and the Skrulls, he's like, oh, okay, let's take you to the asylum. You're a little crazy, right? But very shortly after, he realizes that she's telling the truth. Guys, I've read some articles that are pretty interesting that actually say this movie is just as much a Nick Fury origin story as it is a Captain Marvel story. So I think you're really going to enjoy that aspect about Nicholas. No one calls him Nicholas. He's gonna think I'm a Skrull. I'm human, Nick Fury. I'm human, okay? Don't come after me. All right, guys, so I just told you one of the things I loved about the movie, and now I want to share with you something that maybe didn't make a lot of sense for me for this movie. To me, it was a very hard shift, a complete 180 to just all of a sudden believe that the Skrulls were good guys. Now, it wasn't too much of a shift for me to think that the Kree were bad guys, because even going into this movie, before I went and saw it at all, if you've seen Guardians of the Galaxy, you're kind of like, wait a second, how can Captain Marvel be a Kree? Because aren't the Kree bad guys? Ronan, he went in and struck a deal with Thanos to destroy a planet. And wasn't Ronan a Kree? How is the hero a Kree? That wasn't a hard shift. It was like, okay, I was right. The Krees were bad all along. But, maybe if you could look back at the beginning of the movie and think, oh, and it all makes sense now. I see their motives and I can see how they were good guys. But it just wasn't happening for me, because at the beginning of the movie, when they kind of get in that conflict, when they're looking for their agent, don't the Skrulls start the conflict? Isn't Jude Law's character saying, we don't want to hurt you, and then one of the Skrulls starts the fight? I was a little confused by that. And then also, shortly after, the Skrulls are trying to murder Nick Fury and Captain Marvel, so I don't know. It was just a hard shift for me. Maybe it wasn't a hard shift for you. Maybe if I knew more about the comics, it wouldn't be such a hard shift, but that was a little difficult for me. I think the other thing that made that 180 plot twist a little bit difficult for me is at the very beginning of the movie, I recognized the voice of Ben Mendelsohn, who of course plays the head Skrull, and who, in my opinion, I've never seen him play a good guy. He was bad in Rogue One and he was bad in Bloodline, and I love him, don't get me wrong, I think he's a terrific actor, but I definitely recognize that voice. To me, it's very you can tell that that's Ben Mendelsohn, and then to all of a sudden be like, oh, he's a good guy? He did a great job. Great job, Ben. Kudos. But I'm just not used to seeing you as a good guy. I guess it was a nice change of events, though. All right, guys, back to another thing that I loved about Captain Marvel. I absolutely adored that this movie was set in the mid-90s. Now, I was born in the mid-80s, but much of my childhood was lived through the 90s. I mean, this takes place in 1995. I would have been 10 years old, right? What a great age. What a great age to experience that decade. So I loved all the little nods and the great lengths that they took to make you feel like you were back in the 90s, like when she fell into the Blockbuster and you saw all the 90s movies on the shelf. Anything with a computer. I mean, my theater that I went to go see this movie in, there were chuckles all throughout, when they loaded the CD-ROM, and then it was loading. I heard somebody behind me go, oh, I used to hate that, It was just so fun to experience and to be reminded of how we used to live in the not-so-distant past. All right, back to the other side of things, back to things that kind of make me scratch my head, right? For example, why did Jan Rog, Jude Law's character in the movie, not want Vers to use her full potential when he was fighting her, when he was training her? We find out later that he kidnapped her because he saw her potential, because he saw that she had all these insane powers. And then to tell her to stifle them, why wouldn't he want her to use those in their battles? They're noble warriors, right? I just didn't understand why he didn't want her to use her full potential. And maybe some of you guys have insight into this. Maybe if you've read the comics, you understand that the Kree, or maybe there are people that don't really like using their emotions to get in the mix. He kept telling her that. Or maybe it had something to do with the fact that he just wanted to know that he gained her complete trust and loyalty before he told her how to really manage and harness her power. I don't know, but to me, she was there, 6 years? I just don't quite understand why he had never used. I mean, she's a powerful weapon, but I don't know. You tell me what you think. You tell me how I'm way off base here. It didn't quite make sense to me. All right, back to one of the things that I really enjoyed about this movie. Man, did they do a great job setting up her origin story. I'm not sure if I've ever seen an origin story like this before where it just kept you guessing. You didn't quite understand what on earth was going on. She kept having these Kree memories, she kept having these human memories, and the whole time you're like, is she a Kree that human memories have been implanted, or is she a human and Kree memories have been implanted, or which really neither of those quite hits the nail on the head. But from the time when the Skrulls abduct her and are trying to access her memories, to her own vague, random memories that aren't even really organic memories. I mean, she was remembering them incorrectly. It just really kept you guessing the whole time until that reveal when we find out that she got her power from that space travel instrument that Dr. Lawson or Marvel had created with the Tesseract, and that she got all those amazing powers. I mean, can we argue about the fact that she is super duper powerful? There is not much that she cannot do and that she cannot destroy. She was pretty amazing. All right, moving on to another thing that was a little bit confusing for me in the movie. And honestly, it wasn't confusing for me as much as I'm concerned that it would be confusing for others. Now, I know that we all have different opinions of what age would be appropriate to take a child to a movie like this, but I really do feel that for any child under the age of 8, they are gonna be so confused about Annette Bening's character. I was like, man, oh man, if you're not paying close attention, you're gonna be confused. Because one minute, you don't even know who she is at all. She's like this weird memory. Then the next minute, she's like the head of the Kree. Then the next minute, she's Dr. Larson, who is a Kree, but decided she wanted to right all the wrongs she'd done and invents this device. And then all of a sudden, she's back to being the supreme intelligence, and she's really bad, and she's against Captain Marvel. I just feel like if you're a younger audience, you might be super confused by that, or maybe even if you're an adult and you're not paying super close attention. I'm kind of imagining a scenario where someday this is on, it's televised, and someone walks in and watches 5 minutes and then comes back in 20 minutes and wait a second, wasn't she? One of those things. It's really not a bad thing as much as I just think it might have been confusing. And hey, Annette Bening, where have you been? Great job, gal. That was really fun. Fun to see you in a film again. Okay, apparently Annette Bening has been in a bunch of stuff recently, just nothing that I've seen. But anyway, I really enjoyed her in this film. It was fun. Okay, guys, the fourth thing I want to talk about that I loved about this movie, and I know you're like, Melanie, how have you not mentioned this yet? The Flerken! Guys, the Flerken! Now, I had heard going into this movie that the cat maybe wasn't all that he seemed, that maybe he was more than a cat. And this fact did not disappoint at all. When Ben Mendelsohn's character freaks out at the cat and says, what are you doing with that? It's a Flerken! From that moment on, you're at the edge of your seat, oh, when are we gonna get to see what the Flerken does and the Flerken in action? And I'll tell you what, my son who was sitting next to me, when that Flerken, he had the biggest, deepest belly laughs. You could hear him all throughout the theater. He thought it was hilarious. And side note, we've been calling our cat Flerken lately. Sorry, Trixie, your name is no longer Trixie. It is now Flerken. And Marvel Studios, you're not fooling anyone. We know you've got the Swedish chef on your writing team. I heard it Flerken, lurkin, durkin. Okay, I'm just kidding. I know that the Flerkens were in the original comic books, but that does sound like something the Swedish chef would say, am I right? Finally, my last thing that was kind of for me in this movie was, why has Captain Marvel been gone so long? At the end of the movie, it's 1995, and sure, I know there's a lot of work to be done. You gotta get all the Skrulls back together and reunite them with their families, but 20 plus years, Captain Marvel, 20 plus years it took you to do this? I mean, there's a couple dozen times that you could have helped us here on Earth. Carol, where were you? Am I right? I mean, she's from Earth. She had friends and relationships on Earth. Why? Why didn't you come back? Now, I'm sure that this is probably going to be addressed in Endgame. She'll probably have some one-liner that's there was a lot to do with the galaxy, and I've been, helping people and stuff. But I think 20 plus years. Like, I find it hard to believe that she never felt an inkling to maybe go back and see her friends, be like, hey, Fury, what's up? Got anything for me? No, she waited for him to page her, you know, at the absolute height of tragedy in the universe. So, I don't know, I can't wait to see her in Endgame, but it just makes me wonder why she didn't come back sooner. Okay, guys, we're down to my very favorite thing that I loved the most about this movie, and of course, it has to be what is quite possibly the best Stan Lee cameo ever in all of the MCU universe. Now, at first I thought, oh, how fitting, his last cameo is his best cameo yet, but I have actually heard rumblings that they filmed another cameo for Endgame before his passing, so we may have one more cameo to look forward to. But let me share with you why this cameo was absolutely brilliant. All right, so let's talk about this cameo. Now, I hope that most of you probably understand the full scope of what they were implying with this cameo, but let's just kind of rehash it, all right? So, Captain Marvel goes on the bus and she's looking for the Skrulls, and who knows who the Skrulls are because they shapeshift. It could be anyone, right? So then she puts down a little script and she looks, and Stan Lee is there and he's practicing a line, and she gives an extra long little smile at him, which I heard was actually added after his passing. That extra long little smile wasn't a part of it originally. But what was so perfect and great about this cameo is that if you don't know the line he was practicing for, you would just think, oh, she saw him on the bus. But then upon a closer glance, and I think I may have been the only person in the theater when I was there that got this, because I'm the only one that laughed out loud. I was like, this is great. He's actually rehearsing his line for the cameo he makes in the movie Mallrats. Now, for those of you who may be too young to remember, or for those of you who are not up on your 1990s cinema, Mallrats is a movie that was released in 1995, so the timing is perfect here. And Stan Lee actually had a cameo in this movie. It was a movie about kids in a mall, and it starred Jason Lee, and it was written by Kevin Smith, or you might know him as Silent Bob. It was written and directed by him, and he is a humongous comic book fan. So he somehow got Stan Lee to cameo in his movie. So if you watch that cameo again, you'll see that on the front of that script it says Mallrats, and he's practicing his line, which was, "Trust me, true believer." It is a line that he says to Jason Lee's character, Brody, in the mall. Brody, that's a really great name, don't you think? Anyway, I should mention that this is a family channel, and I am in no way endorsing the movie Mallrats, okay? It is not suited for younger viewers, in my humble opinion, so, you know, use your best discretion if you've never seen Mallrats. It's definitely not for the younger audience. So ultimately, guys, what this cameo means, and I think this is the first time that this has happened in the MCU universe with all of the Stan Lee cameos that have ever been, I think this is the first one in which he's actually cameoing as himself, because he is Stan Lee practicing for his line in the movie that he was featured in 1995. I thought it was so brilliant. It fit perfectly, and I loved seeing it. Thank you, Marvel, for putting in that cameo. I loved it. So that's it, guys, my first ever movie review on Lend Me Your Ears, and I want to know, what did you think about Captain Marvel? What good things or confusing things do you agree or disagree with me on? I can't wait to hear from you in the comments section below. As always, guys, make sure that you click subscribe and that bell right next to it to receive up-to-the-date notifications of when we drop new content here at Lend Me Your Ears. And of course, I would love to feature your ears here in one of the episodes that I make. If you would like to lend me your ears, please just go ahead and leave a comment in the comments section. If you are chosen to have your ears featured on one of our episodes, we will reach out to you and get you all the necessary information that you need so that you can send us your ears. We will feature them in an episode, and then we will send them right back to you. Guys, it's been a blast. This is Melanie from Lend Me Your Ears, and we'll see you next time at the movie theater.